Hello, guys. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Money. How are you doing this morning?
All good. Hello.
All
Hello,
good?
Francesco. Yeah, pretty good.
Charged up?
Happy to be here and discuss a pretty hot topic, I guess.
That's right. So today we're diving into ETFs, and in particular the ETH ETF. So what I'd maybe like to know first, guys, is did you really see this coming? Because honestly, I didn't. And actually, if I go by any predictions made just days before the approval, which was what, a week ago today, the chances were very, very slim. I wrote it off for the year in my own head, and then voila, it happened. What's your take, guys?
Was quite the same. I think like mostly as always, you have like this feeling on the media, social media, so you tend to follow the trend, and without any real, I have to say, fundamentals to back it, I was kind of following the trend. So I was thinking the chances were pretty low, but by the end of the year, of course, we could expected it, but not at all in May. And like many of us, once I think the SEC has to make some changes in a few of those requests on ETF, then it was like more obvious that it was going to be approved, especially when they asked to remove, like, I think it was the staking part of the ETF. Then it was quite clear that it was maybe 80% chance of being approved in the next 24, 48 hours. But before that, it was the opposite. I was like 90% chance it was going to be rejected.
Just seems to happen so quick. Marco, what's your take?
I was a bit like an outlier in this situation because I was not confident, but like the consensus was 25% only chances of this being approved, but I was more about 50, to be honest.
Why? Why is that?
Mostly because, well, I mean, it's not a real fundamental, but it has to do a lot with the fact that when I see BlackRock doing something, when I see Fidelity moving, when I see Valkyrie moving, and as aside Grayscale, which was the first proponent to the transformation of the trust into an ETF, then things started, like, for me, was like, okay, there's a good chance. And then like I was more confident exactly when I saw, and it was, we have to remember, like, chronologically, we had first the removal, the update of the form with the removal of the staking out of, which I was sure the staking would have not worked out. But then I realized, wait, it's they are removing the staking. You have big players behind it. I've seen this before. I think it could actually go. Definitely didn't expect as fast. Like, I would have expected more and more refining of the process, to be honest. But I was more like, I think, September, October, this could actually happen.
It just felt like all of a sudden there was the usual update form X that happened very quickly, and within days it was done. But maybe let's just clarify what has happened. So the House has approved the bill, right? So it still has to go through Senate and presidential approval, and this can still take weeks / months, particularly in a sort of presidential environment. So the approval process is in full force, but we don't have live ETFs. It's a little unlike the Bitcoin ETF, which went live and then we're open for business that day. We're not live yet, right? And this might take still many months, but the market certainly seems to have welcomed the event very, very positively.
Yeah, I think it took actually the reverse path compared to Bitcoin. That's what surprised me. It's the logistic of how it has happened. In the Bitcoin case, everything was clear, multiple meetings, multiple rejections. So now, like, approved the S1 or not, and now was the 19B, which is the pre-filing, and I think it's going to be not fast, but I think it's not going to take a long time, like probably 3-4 weeks. It could actually last months, but I think now we are at that accelerated pace. And I think it mostly has been a political 360, well, 180 if you want, of the SEC in regards, not in regards of crypto, but in regards of, sorry, not in regards of Ethereum specifically, but in regards of crypto globally. They need to, I think they start to feel in danger of losing their position, all of them, not just the chair. And so they want to readjust to hedge their bets, let's put it like this.
Let me read between the lines, Marco. You're not saying this is a political move, is that what I'm reading?
It is a political move, but I'm saying that is
malicious. This is obviously political.
No, but up until now, the SEC was extremely one-sided. Was with the left-wing Democrats. So it was with the Warren. It was with the Senator Warren position. Everything in crypto is diabolic. Everything has to be destroyed, to be banned, because that's the only way you can preserve America. And then they started switching. It was little by little, but then it has actually happened now with Ethereum, and it has happened because of multiple things that were in conjunction. The Republican went the opposite. Well, not really the opposite, but clearly used this as a flexion point. So now Republican Party accept donation in crypto.
Yeah,
they pushed out that
super bullish. They've been very vocal about
that announcement, and that is important because that shows that you cannot be against crypto if you are accepting money in crypto form. So even if you are, I mean, the Republican went with this thing, with this new narrative. We are open for business for crypto as well. And now that to put them in contrast against the Democrats. Now, if you are a SEC now and you are the chairman, okay, maybe you find another job after the election, but everybody else is kind of looking at this and need to say, well, I'm gonna do after it? Because if we are all against it, everything has to be banned. And then the SEC chair Gensler has been already asked and inquired multiple times by the Republican elected people in the chamber, in the Senate, against their policies. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you so blatantly banning everything? And then you go in front of a judge and you lose. And then it's the federal government who have to pay back.
Yeah.
So they started to add to questioning him and his policies. And so now I think they want to reposition themselves in the middle. That's the thing. It's like they want to position themselves in the middle. They're not pro-crypto now. It's just that before in a range from destroy crypto and pro-crypto, they were very close to destroy crypto. So now they're more
it's too big to be unnoticed. So if Trump's been very pro-crypto, behind Bitcoin and the wider crypto movement, even outsider Kennedy Jr. has been very pro-crypto, the Democrats have been left a little behind. I mean, just here on the screen we see just how big the electorate is, and when you start touching people's money in their pockets, people vote with their money, right? So they might not align with all the policies, but when you start tinkering around with millions of investors, then you've got to do something about it. So I fully agree with your view, Marco. Whilst the SEC has to be by design independent from government, I can only but imagine that this was not one to lose an election on. Actually, just yesterday, I was picking up one of my favorite podcasts, which is part of the Unchained podcast, just quoting his words: Biden won't win the crypto crown, but or crowd rather, not crown, but he won't lose the electorate either on crypto anymore. At least he's shown a degree of willingness to cooperate.
I don't agree with that.
Fine, we can debate that, but I think he's at least. I think that the Democrats had to throw this out there to cooperate, which is in huge contrast, I believe, with everything that we've seen happen lately by the SEC. I mean, there's a huge laundry list of attacks from the SEC, from the DOJ, from arrests to we've seen them all. Even the very biggest houses, from Binance to Coinbase to Kraken, Uniswap lately. The trend has been very much against, as you outlined before. So it just feels like in electorate season, there are too many millions of voters whose vote might have gone against. So this way, I believe they've made a step in not being so anti, so to speak. And there you go. We have ETH ETFs and more adoption incoming. So challenge me. What's your view on that?
If up until now you have been the Spanish Inquisition, then you cannot rebrand yourself as Gandhi. There is a limit. There is always a limit, and they have to understand the limit. And the limit is always when you really touch people money. You can touch religion, you can touch social rights, which, by the way, really doesn't touch as much as everyone as money. Money really touch everyone, because we are in a society where money, you need it every day. And if you have been so dramatically against, and you put that as one of the loudest voice in your field has been the voices that were really against this. Now just say, well, but we're not that bad. Feels like marketing. And that's not the good side. The only I don't believe, for example, that Trump is pro-crypto. It's just that sometimes to do the best thing, you just have to do nothing. They did, like Republican did absolutely nothing to support crypto. They weren't loud, maybe some of them, but it was just some outliers. But the big guys, Trump, didn't say anything specifically pro-crypto ever. You just had to sit down and wait for
Marco, but I mean, Trump has been quite vocal on his own media, so he has been verbally outspoken on the topic. So, I mean, you're right. I mean,
it's only about the business, only about the business side of it. Was never about crypto, like Bitcoin being a better reserves than other things.
He didn't say that, Marco, but he has been on video. It's gone viral, but he's been anti-CBDC, and he's been pro BTC. I am going to protect your Bitcoin holdings. He exactly said that. Maybe.
But that's not pro crypto. It doesn't mean this is a good asset. It means I care about your freedom of do what you want, which you have the right to, because this is the land of the free, right? So that's it. That's the narrative. That's the credo they were pushing out, and that was fine. Like, was in the typical Republican tradition. Was in line with the middle class to a certain extent. Americans, Republican, they vote for it. So there was nothing specific. It was the other side who were saying that crypto is only used for scam, for stealing money, for drug trafficking, for
here we go. We got plenty of cases here on the slide. It's just showing the trend of cases against crypto is mounting and continues to grow. So yeah, I totally aligned on
that. A small asterisk there. That doesn't mean that there is no problem with the crypto industry. I mean, me and you, Francesco, we published a risk management paper right on this. It's completely another story. There's a lot of issue. But the thing is, when you go with the Spanish Inquisition, the Torquemada behavior, which is burn them all. Anybody is a witch, any woman would just show burn them all. Then you lose the trust on your ability to inspect only the things that don't work, to be that enforcement agency for protecting the customers. And so now you have to choose a side, and when you have to choose a side, it's all or nothing. There is no color scale. There is no shades of gray. There's only black and white. But that's true, and I want to be completely clear that there is many cases in which the crypto industry is still not mature. It's still extremely risky business because lacks not of regulation, but lacks of ethics and lacks of good good procedures and a framework of how to work to make this work sustainably in a long time. So that's important. But this is when you go deep down and you do the breakdown. But the high level, which is where the American politics is at the moment, it's only you are yes or no.
So, well, we have an approved ETF, not available in the market just yet. So that follows BTC. Controversial. I think we're agreeing. We might not agree with all the words we're hearing, but I think we can agree it's a controversial move in terms of the political statement that makes. Any other takes or quirks about the ETF per se, guys, in terms of how it came about? Maxime, any other takes?
Marco summarized it pretty well. One thing that we can mention is Asia approved an ETF before the US. So that's kind of interesting that you might have this competition in the future, that the US is not the first one now. It used to be like this leader on financial markets, and now they're kind of maybe losing a bit of traction. And we know that it's not directly related to the ETF, but there's big crypto hubs around the globe. And there's this competition that started. We know there's a big one in Dubai. We know that Switzerland with the Crypto Valley was ahead of everyone with their foundation to let crypto companies create their activity and raise money. They don't want to be left behind. That's what I think the US also kind of realized now. It's too many votes, so they're chasing votes, of course, the parties. But then for the SEC, it's getting also counterproductive. Yeah. And you mentioned it recently. What's the biggest cap on the Nasdaq right now? It's Nvidia. Of course, there's the AI trend that is pushing their sales as well. But back then it was crypto also. You mentioned it, Francisco. Like the impact of the crypto industry can impact the stock market, and there's a relationship between those two, and the impact for politics and even geopolitics at some point will be related to crypto.
So what does that mean in terms of the market? Well, we saw the biggest ETH single day candle ever. I think it's up 25% on the week. And still it's not even recovered its prior peak. I mean, this cycle's peak, not to mention the prior cycle's peak. So Marco, you're a market guy. What does that mean in terms of outlook, positioning? We've been, particularly when you've been out of the show, a little bit bearish on ETH. It felt like in the last year, Bitcoin's bounced back, not only because of the ETF, because of the halving, momentum. Solana's been the new sort of kid on the rock, on the block, sort of pulling the market up, and ETH felt like squeezed a little bit in the middle. But there seems to be putting ETH back in its place. What's your sense there?
So I think we are in the compression phase. Compression phase is basically when you already have a first price explosion, then you recompress, to recharge the batteries if you want, or to create more momentum to do the second phase of price explosion. I believe that we're going to go into more like for some weeks now, we're still going to have this sluggish market, but there's going to, like the bull market will restart first with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Everything else at the moment is just losing steam. There are a few things that goes up and down. So meme coins, which usually is like like the bird in the canary mine, right? The canary in the coal mine. It's that thing that tells you, okay, well, it's gonna happen. Now, where we are is that if you check previous cycles, after halving, Bitcoin never just immediately pumps. Mm-hmm. Have a first phase of, let's say, correction, not capitulation. It's kind of a correction until the moving average catch up. This is kind of where we are. The moving average have catched up almost. We are very close to that. So we are getting close to this phase, and then we will restart. And we are in a conjuncture now globally with the macro. Conjuncture is that on the negative side, we have Mt. Gox that had to reimburse users up to 9 billion Bitcoin, which was a negative, right? It was a negative because it brings the potential for people to sell, but we don't never know, because that doesn't really mean anything. We have looked at Solana. Solana, when the federal judge decided that FTX could sell their Solana immediately started pumping like crazy. There is a story behind that. It requires its own chapter, but means that there is a precedent it's not true, because people maybe will receive Bitcoin and will just hold it or lend it or do anything else except selling it. So it's not a one-to-one, it's not a linear. So this is on the negative. On the other negative macro level, which potentially will transform today, we have to check the market for positive, is the inflation story. The inflation story has been that now we should see, according to the Fed, last year and beginning of the year was beginning of summer, we'll see inflation dropping, and this is because we have raised the rates, and so we can start thinking about cutting the rates. Simple, clear, the message was clear. Well, what happened? Inflation is still very too high compared to where the expectation were. Salaries tend to go high, but most importantly, the cost of life was quite high, especially in the latest macro data. But then if you do the breakdown, realize one thing, that if you see now that you have decreasing inflation in all sectors except one, housing. And housing has a direct correlation, so it's positively correlated with rates. The higher the rates, the higher housing. Why? Well, simple. Because if you pay a mortgage, based on the interest rates, so this goes up. And the renting business is directly correlated to the buying business. So if it costs 1 million to buy a house, the rent, same house, similar, has to reflect a rent similar or higher than it would cost to actually buy it and pay the mortgage. So this section of the whole basket case of inflation is directly correlated with the high rates. So if everything now is starting to slow down, as it seems like, and it could be confirmed today because we have the PCE, which is the spending, and we see that housing, everything else is going down, then we could potentially foresee that now finally the inflation is decreasing, and then we could go into that scenario of cutting rates, and that could be the catalyst for Bitcoin and in general crypto market to restart the engine and restore the bullish run.
I think, for intellectual honesty, Matt, we've said this many times. So I concur with what you say, but I find we have to explain on this channel what inflation is really. What inflation is, what consumer price indexes mean, how they're calculated, what inflation actually means in the back pockets of every individual. My inflation rate is different to yours, to Maxime's, to any other person, depending on our spending pattern. You mentioned housing, but there's so much else that isn't factored in, the CPI and inflation rates. Real inflation, purchasing power effects are way higher than whatever we read or whatever we'll hear today. So, I mean, but that deserves a different topic. What I'd add, though, in terms of macro outlook, I think would be positive, of course, to be in that scenario where real inflation rates are settling down and interest rates can come down. That will inject liquidity into the system. But back to our US political scenario, we're in political year, right? We're in an election year. Whether we go to the left or to the right, Republicans or Democrats, candy is handed out whoever wins. And candy means reforms, injections, infrastructure, you name it, whatever will be, whether it's the Republican or the Democrat agenda. That means money injected in the system, money printing, and when money is printed and is injected in the system in liquid form, it searches the best return on investment. And most might have by now lost the trade on Nvidia. If you take Nvidia out of the stock market, the US stock market, in fact, the Magnificent Seven are trailing the market. If you take Nvidia out, they're trailing the market, and those are the best. Where is the money going to go? For me, that is the most bullish actually scenario. Is money's going to flood the system as liquidity hits the pockets of investors, from the biggest ones to average people on the street, retail money. We'll see a real catalyst to this market. That's what I'm expecting to see happen later on this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like usually, you don't, in election year, especially when you're this close, you don't make any policies change that can bring pain to people, right? You just wanted to make them happy and give them something quick win. So one good way to do this is usually by injecting capital, as you cleverly said, just handing out candies. How that will translate into the financial markets. Financial markets are extremely efficient, as you said, is whenever they see a potential for returns, they just, you give me free cash, I'm just going to place it where I can make it more. So that's for sure the case. Generally, I think we will always have this big company now becoming more and more leader, and the rest of them just followers in terms of capitals, in terms of market cap and so on. Maybe one thing about inflation, this my personal vision, is that in any case, the central bank around the world has to accept a higher rate of inflation, because otherwise the dream of constant growth doesn't really fit anymore. So in order to do that, you have to accept rebase everything. Instead of the 2% inflation, something around 3% inflation. By the way, this number, there's no economical theory about 2% inflation being the best. It just came out of a heuristic of how to sustain the eternal growth with the population growth. And I know it is disconnected more and more, but now the only way that we should connect to is the money printing effect rather than the population growth. So we should stay around 3%, which create more pain and more risk for people, like normal, because that means that every year you have to gain at least to make at least 4% more than you made last year. Otherwise, you are losing money, not making more, right? This has to be understood by people. That's important. But I think that if you evaluate with what's happening on the market, you see that potentially we are going in that scenario, in a scenario of where we could actually see positive potential changes coming for money to flow into the risky crypto asset, which is the classification under which the whole crypto has been set for financial markets, which is risky asset. So whenever you see information or macros that say risk on, it's positive for crypto. When it's risk off, it's negative for crypto.
Maxime, any other takes? Market outlook?
No, I'm listening because it's always great to have Marco on the show and to listen to those economical views. And I just agree. I like this channel because we have this long-term vision. I think we covered election a while ago. Probably in January we started to talk about it and mentioned it as something that could be a catalyst or at least impact the market. And now we know that inflation plays a big role as well. So I'm learning a lot as usual.
So just before we wrap, then let's look at. So let's think about ETF approval on ETH. I'd like your takes on what that means around the bigger Howey test question of, does that take ETH out of the securities camp? Yes, no. And also, I mean, once in my head, once we breach the ETH space, the beyond Bitcoin space, anything else is a candidate for an ETF. We've kind of opened the floodgates. So, what could come next? So it's taken 10 years to get to a Bitcoin ETF. It's taken 4 further months to get ETH out there. Solana, Ripple, you name it. I mean, what stops the queue from crowding, the launch of more to come?
If you look at this channel, I don't remember exactly when, but like I already publicly stated that Ripple would be the next. I now want to add, not to change, but to add Solana for political reason. But because Solana has 2 things that nobody else has. First, US-based blockchain, very important. Second of all, 1, 2, or 3 of the biggest backers of Solana are actually brought in by FTX ex-CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, via capital injection from big funds, really big funds. And they have political power because they put money into the super PAC, and this money brings you power. It's not nothing. So these guys, when they put hundreds and hundreds of millions, right, in political donation, they expect something in return. Has the oil, everybody else, right? Who does that? So that means that they expect this to happen. So I see those two. Which one is the first? From a legal standpoint, Ripple has a bigger chance because it has been already deemed not a security by a federal judge. And the US, every time a federal judge makes a decision, that can be used as a legal proceeding for any other subsequent case. So if the SEC doesn't approve an ETF on Ripple, they cannot claim because Ripple is an underlying security and it can be manipulated. I mean, they have to say something else. Solana, I think, also because, well, the SEC, politically wise, it's suicide if to try and kill Solana. So both of them can actually happen, but I do not see this year. This is my big.
You don't see Trump launching his own meme coin ETF.
He has already, like he already has the Trump meme coin, but it's not his. At least it's not discernible. It seems that somebody, in crypto space, you can say everything except lack of imagination and creativity, and so that there's some people have launched already the Trump, which is pumping quite well.
And the Biden, we have both, right, from both camps.
Yeah, and the Biden as well. So anyway, Ripple, yes. Solana, yes, as well. Not sure when. I'm not thinking before 2025, because I mean, we have to be honest. Bitcoin was, I mean, it was seriously like an asset that has so many years of trading, everything financially and logically. Reason dictates that Bitcoin ETF would have been approved. Ethereum has a very similar path with Ethereum has a less years, but it has more. I think it has way more adoption. So if you want, it's even more distributed to a certain extent. Actually, is actually more used. Is way more used Ethereum than Bitcoin for in DeFi. Like just DeFi is Ethereum. So there is fundamental cases. Ripple and Solana are two different things, but they have one of the legal, the other of the political pressure to sustain those two. After that, not sure. I see something else happening, but at least for now, we can count on those to be probably the next one. I'm thinking 2025. After that, I see a platform for this that has to evolve, a flat platform for launching this type of product like ETF or ATP in different other coins that is highly regulated and maybe comes from one of the big financial institutions.
Can I just double down on my earlier question though, Marco? And as I said, we've been a bit bearish on the ETH case, particularly without you on the show. But can we pitch? Can you help us pitch ETH for what it is right now in a wider sense? So not just the ETF effect, but if we think of the developments that have happened from proof of stake to proof of work, the constant evolutions from a technology perspective. We shared on the show just the sheer amount of development, investment in the ETH space compared to any other chain. And there's far more than that, right? In terms of the value ecosystem. I don't want you to tell us this is not an investment advice program, whether you feel it's rightly valued, undervalued relative to the market, but maybe let's really restate clearly what ETH is all about and what its place is in the crypto world.
I think the testament.
Let's end with that as an ETH show today.
I think a testament of success of ETH is the fact that right now in the crypto space, not traditional, but in crypto space, nobody here talks about Ethereum anymore as a tool to do stuff. It's the underlying, the infrastructure level that you need to have to create DeFi. So you don't even talk about ETH. It's a precondition to the fact. It's not even a discussion. I think that's the level of maturity that I have reached in the space. So that's something that I think, since we have more and more data that we are pushing out about adoption, DeFi, transaction volumes, and so on, every interconnection between traditional finance and crypto finance and DeFi specifically, the rails of those trains will be made of ETH.
Mm-hmm.
So Ethereum has this, I'm the rails to the transportation industry. I don't even have to pitch you about the value of it. You know it because, well, you want to build on top of it to generate the use case that you want. And that's the value. So it's becoming commodity, literal commodity. And in the crypto sauce, okay? But that's it. So everything that will, for example, I see, like in my weird mind, I'm trying to see in the future. And what I see in the future is, for example, passive income that is really lagging in the traditional world. I don't know how many of you have a bank account that actually give you positive interest rate. Nobody.
I don't keep cash in my bank account anymore, Marco.
With a bit, let's say the audience.
Just to pay my bills.
But 99% of the people do. And how to recreate the positive interest rates? Well, there is potentially a way to do this into the crypto market. Now, it's not big enough, the crypto market now, to do that, but it has the mechanism inside to generate passive income in a sustainable way for long term, as TradFi had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a new escape route for traditional finance to start generating those 3, 4, 5, 6% interest rate for normal people when cash is not used for anything else. And it has the leeway for doing that. But the infrastructure is Ethereum. So
I agree.
Don't even think about anything else.
You mentioned DeFi, passive income, but actually I was just hearing the other day, do you know of the 160 billion stablecoin market, how much runs on ETH chain? It's 99.x%. I think 0.8 goes through Solana. Everything else is on ETH. I mean, that's pretty significant, I think. So.
Yeah, because you need that first initial. First of all the DeFi, when it takes, I don't want to make a long answer to this because it takes, there's a lot of complexity, but just a high level is like getting in the highway. DeFi is the highway, is the counter, is the control border. That's Ethereum. In order to get to the highway, you have to pass through there, get your ticket. From there, you swap your USDTs or your USDC, your stablecoin, for a crypto asset. And if you want to wrap your crypto asset in a way so that it is portable in multiple blockchain, again, you start the journey in Ethereum. And where you have the highest liquidity, it's in Ethereum, in DeFi. And I'll say just this. If you have 1K, it's not a problem. When you start to have 5 million, 10 million in stablecoin, and you want to place it somewhere to generate 5% return, nice and easy, okay, in a DeFi space, but you have liquidity risk. So in order to reduce that liquidity risk, you have to select a pool that is way bigger than your capital injection. And those big pools, where they are.
Can I make an off statement and maybe loop Maxime in as we close this event? So in summary, rightly or wrongly, but Bitcoin's ossifying itself as gold. Buy and hold, keep it there. ETH is the foundational infrastructure, like, the HTTP, internet. We don't care what it looks like as long as it works. And Solana's kind of the front end, GUI, snazzy model, or maybe right now the most user-friendly way to interact. not necessarily in DeFi, but also in DeFi, but in other use cases. Right now, I see that sort of trilogy dominating the market. Is that? Do you agree with that? Is there more? I know I've simplified massively, but that's the way I'm looking at the three. So King, Queen, and Jack in town. If I could call Solana the Jack right now.
Yeah, I think the way I see it, it's more. We've discussed it many times. It's just the barrier of UX and fees. So Solana is easier. If you're new to crypto, it's more for retailers. But on the other hand, as Marco mentioned, if you're big players, you're looking for liquidity, you need bigger pools. You have hundreds or millions to inject and invest in crypto. Ethereum will be like your go-to chain, just because that's where the liquidity is. Security is proven. It's being traded for longer than Solana, and that's
a big one, right? I mean, security. I shared a podcast with you guys from Justin Drake earlier this week, who was really doubling down on ETH security features, and that's super important for any institutions building their own digital assets, change infrastructure funds. They're all going ETH. There's no question around that right now. Who knows in the future, but right now, that seems to be the way to go. Guys, we've been on 45 minutes-ish. Any final takes?
I think that's good already. We covered a lot of topic, but excited for the next episode on whether it's about inflation or no matter what the topic is. I believe as well, just like Marco, we're in a contraction, so we'll see some movement in the future and exciting times ahead.
There are a few interviews coming out. Watch this space. Some interesting new projects. Maxime, you might know something about that, and plenty more. So keep your eyes open. Register to the channel, and see you around. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Cheers.
Well done, guys.
I hope you enjoyed our video. If you found the video informative, please don't forget to follow our channel and click the alarm button to be informed of new videos coming through. There is plenty to learn and get your head around on your journey to mastering crypto. Thanks for watching, and see you on our next video.